Hey guys, and welcome to the first ever episode of Suit Up. This is the new series that I'm starting, taking a look at the frames that are so much a part of Warframe. Talking about builds, their powers, and situations where I feel that they excel. So that you guys can make an informed decision as to whether you would like to get them or not. In episode 1 we're going to be starting by taking a look at the newest frame on the block, the so-called Dragon frame, Chroma. Chroma was teased by Digital Extreme devs on the live stream as the next stage in Warframe development, and that we would be excited by what he has to offer. And on the face of it, there is a huge amount to be excited for. His stats are pretty impressive to start with a pretty average 300 health and shield at rank 30, which is admittedly nothing special. However, with an above average power pool of 225, things start getting interesting. Especially when you start to take a look at the armor value that he boasts. 350. The second highest in the game behind Valkyrie. Now this alone has been something to be excited about, which is another tank in the game. Something that Warframe has really been lacking, with only Valkyrie taking that role. But wait, there's so much more. In the past, frame powers have been decided by the developers, Miasma being toxic, Avalanche being cold. However, Chroma is the first of a new breed, where the player can determine the damage type of the abilities by changing the colour of the energy on the frame. Now think about this for just a second. Frame abilities that can be tailored to do specific damage to certain factions. How amazing is that? Finally, proper customization of a frame. Now this is something to get really excited about. As a result of this ability to customize the frame in such a way, it does mean that Chroma has the highest build cost out of any of the Warframes in the game. Not only do you have to gain the materials for the Chroma parts, but you also need a built part for each stage of the build. An Ember helmet for Chroma's helmet, Frost chassis for the chassis, Siren systems for the systems, and Vault helmet to finally craft the frame itself. So not only does this mean that it is the most expensive frame to build, but also the most time consuming as well. So once you finally get your hands on Chroma, I can hear you asking, what powers have I got at my disposal? Well, Chroma's first ability is called Spectral Scream, which is where he will exhale a deep breath of elemental destruction. Now what this means is that when you activate this ability, then Chroma will lose the ability to use any weapons. However, he will project a conal attack from his face, and that can be aimed to a certain degree. Now, the damage done and the area of effect from this attack depends on what element you have equipped and what energy colour. Heat damage with the red energy colour will deal 50% of Spectral's base damage per tick over 6 seconds with a chance to ignite enemies, which is going to cause them to panic and flail around for a few seconds. Electricity with the blue energy colour will deal the damage as electricity in a small area of effect with a chance to chain between enemies, and they are going to be stunned if the electricity prop is applied to them. Toxin with the green energy colour is much the same as heat, however it's applied over 8 seconds. Plus the toxin damage over time will stack on enemies to increase the damage over time. Finally, the cold element with the white or black energy colour will reduce a target's movement speed and fire rate by 50% over a duration of 6 seconds. Now, if I'm brutally honest, this ability is complete garbage. The damage is too low for the loss of the weapons, the range is so low that you have to be right next to a target to hit them, at which point there's no possible reason that you would ever use your Spectral Scream instead of just meleeing the target. And losing the mobility while you're in the screen stance just makes it feel clunky and unusable, and makes you a giant target for things like bombards and ballistas and anything else that hits extremely hard. Now Spectral Scream does already have a syndicate mod for it, Afterburn. Now what this does is it takes the amount of time that you've used Spectral Scream and applies 100 damage for every second in the ability. After you release the Spectral Scream, then Chroma will send out an elemental ball of damage on a single target, up to a maximum of 500 damage. Now while this is actually not a bad mod, and something that I would actually consider using, the fact that the Spectral Scream is such a weak skill, and currently not even worth considering modding for, Sadly, this augment just doesn't get a look in. Moving on to Chroma's second ability, which is Elemental Ward, in which, depending on Chroma's elemental alignment, an offensive area of effect is created. Chroma and its nearby allies are imbued defensive energy. So what this actually means is that when it's active, Chroma will emit a buff to teammates in range of him, as well as buffing himself. And depending on what energy colour is again, you will get differing effects. Heat, with the red energy colour, will boost an ally's health while dealing heat damage to nearby enemies. Electricity boosts shields of surrounding allies, whilst absorbing incoming damage and then releasing it as a single lightning bolt, doing 1000% of the stored damage. The Toxic Aura is going to boost ally stamina by 100 points, reducing all stamina actions by 70%, and also has a 50% chance to proc poison on surrounding enemies. And the cold damage creates an ice shield around allies, boosting their armor by 150 points, as well as reflecting damage back at enemies, dealing 300% increased damage, with a chance to slow the enemy that actually caused the damage. This ability allows you to tailor Chroma so much, to the extent that you can change him from mission to mission, depending on what you want to do. If you want to be a strong tank in high level missions, Cold allows for the armor to do so. If you want to go melee only and have almost infinite block against units shooting at you, then Toxic is definitely the way to go. This allows Chroma to be an absolute linchpin in the team, and is an absolute staple in Chroma's abilities. Now, in addition to Elemental Ward, Chroma's third ability synergizes really well with it, Vex Armor. Vex Armor is something a little bit different as an ability when you compare it with other abilities in Warframe. When shields are damaged, Chroma's armor grows stronger. When health is damaged, weapon damage output increases. What this means is that as Chroma's shields deplete, then it adds to a buff called Scorn, which increases the frame's max armor by 350% at max charge, which when combined with Cold from Elemental Ward, can lead to the highest armor value of any frame in the game. However, not only that, when you do bleed into your health, then a buff called Fury is charged, up to a maximum of 2.75 times the weapon damage. Now, I know this has led to quite a few people in the community saying that this is going to be pretty overpowered, and certainly it is strong, but I don't think it's any way overpowered. If you take into account that to get any of these buffs, Chroma has actually to take damage to get them, and therein sort of adds an element of risk to actually maxing out the charge on these. Also, the ability to overextend while feeling indestructible can also lead to your demise as well, especially since the buff resets when the power drops. When playing Chroma, I fully recommend keeping Elemental Ward and Vex Armor up at all times. Both are an absolute staple ability when playing this frame. Now, moving on to Chroma's fourth and final ability, it's another one that's a bit different to any other frame before him, Effigy, where Chroma turns his pelt into a massive sentry that strengthens nearby allies and engulfs enemies in elemental attacks. So much like the previous abilities, the Effigy is affected by the colour of the energy, to the same extent as Spectral Scream. Not only though will the Effigy attack targets with the elemental damage, it will also occasionally do a roar that will stun enemies within 25 meters, and if enemies are close to the Effigy, it will flap its wings and do a knockdown effect, which means that the Effigy not only damages, but has great crowd control potential as well. However, the amazing features don't stop there. Enemies killed by the Effigy have a 60% chance to drop double credits, which makes Chroma a necessity when credit farming. But wait, there's more. I know what you're thinking. How can there be even more to this ability? But there is. When you launch the Effigy, the frame will gain an extra 20% movement speed at a loss of 50% of his total armor. Now, this does mean that you are way more exposed while you're using the Effigy, since half his armor is now flying around. But it can be used to cover your escape if you just need to get out of there, especially since you can deactivate it at any point with the pelt teleporting itself to wherever you are. Effigy is probably one of the most versatile and useful abilities in the game. It damages, it stuns, it knocks down, it covers your escape and makes you faster. It's an incredible ability. The only thing is that it would be nice for the damage really could be up slightly. It feels a little low right now, but that's really just an observation on an otherwise amazing ability. Okay, so let's move on to starting to mod Chroma. Now we do have 3 polarities on here as standard. We have a V in the aura, we have a dash and another V. However, we are going to add 4 former to the frame. However, we do have 1 polarity here, which is a V, which is completely unnecessary. So for now, we're going to change the aura to a dash, and we're going to add 3 Ds to the frame. Now this build here is pretty much my solo tank build. And this I would run with either cold, if I'm going straight up armor, or if I'm going to use this as my melee only build, I would go with toxic. So to start off with, we're going to put energy siphon in there. We're going to go with fleeting expertise and streamline for the efficiency. Streamline to increase power strength. We're going to go with vitality and steel fiber to help boost the armor. We're going to go with rage to increase the energy as we take damage on our health. I'm going to go with quick thinking, which means that when we get down to very low health, it will use our decent energy pool to try and actually stop us from dying. And then we've got narrow-minded, which is going to help provide duration on the second and third ability. Now, since only the first ability actually suffers really from range, the second does as well, but since this is a solo tank build, the range on the second really doesn't matter, and the first one does so little damage, it's not really worth it anyway. Now the reason for so many former on this build, because as I'm sure the guys that can work out the maths have already realised, I don't need anywhere near this amount of former to fit this build. However, the one thing I do like doing is the second build, where I put rejuvenation in there, which actually did get a bit of a buff recently. Beforehand, you had to wait until you were out of combat before it would start healing. Now it seems to start healing even if you are still in combat. So this is actually very, very helpful, especially on a frame like Chroma. Now as you can see, this V here is completely unnecessary. I really did not need to put that there. Unfortunately, I have done. So this is a 4 former build rather than a 5 former. Now I do have another build which I use for Chroma, which again, energy siphon, fleeting expertise max this time, and streamline. We're going to go with blind rage for more power strength. We're going to go with the vitality again. We're going to go rage quick thinking, and we're going to go narrow-minded and overextended. Now this is going to be my main buff build. Now I know I haven't put the steel fiber on here for the increased armor. However, the rage quick thinking plus the vitality with the base armor plus cold damage, or really whatever you want to put on here, should be enough for Chroma to be easily tanky enough to act as a team buff frame for this build. So onto my recommendation as to whether I feel that Chroma is worth the time, effort and resources invested into him. And the answer to that, unsurprisingly, is absolutely yes, he is. I rushed Chroma as soon as I could, and I've been having an absolute blast ever since. Whether using him as a solo tank with his amazing armor plus the cold damage, or combining that high armor and rage quick thinking with toxin damage to create a melee only beast, or even modding him slightly differently and turning him from being a very solid tank into being more of a very, very solid buff providing frame, helping to enhance your squad with either more health or more shield. Chroma can do it all. When playing him, there's not a lot to remember really. If you keep the Elemental Ward and Vex Armor active, you should be able to head-on tank anything, even into the higher levels. And in times where in fight or flight mode you choose to run, use Effigy to cover your escape and return it to you when you need the extra protection. Chroma, when used effectively, is an absolute ton of fun. From melee only mode to tank mode, and even up to high level late game, he is an absolute blast to play. There are some other things that can seriously help the survivability of Chroma, such as teaming up with other frames using the Regen Aura mod, or by using the Winds of Purity mod for the Furies and using the Lifesteal from that, or even using the Life Strike mod for melee, all to regain some of that lost health. Since the main downside of HP tanking is that unlike shields, they do not regen, so extra measures need to be taken. In addition to that, teaming up with friends with heals, obviously like Oberon or Trinity, is ideal, since they can help to try and keep you alive, freeing up your own weapon slots to do whatever you need with them, rather than having to try and use something with lifesteal. Mod wise, obviously you can change Intensify out for one of the rare power strength mods, Transient Fortitude if you don't mind the duration loss, or Blind Rage if you don't mind the additional power cost. Now, I would recommend against using the Transient mod, since the bonus is reset once the Vex Armor drops, so having more duration on there is more ideal than having more armor. If you were to change to one of these mods, then Blind Rage is definitely the one that I would go with. Digital Extremes teased Chroma a little while ago and hinted that we'll be amazed by the next generation of frames. And if Chroma is anything to go by, then the future, quite frankly, cannot come quick enough, since I am now eagerly awaiting the next frame in the line. So is Chroma worth it? A fantastic frame with a fantastic quest to obtain him? Hell yeah, he's worth it. So worth it. Now just a quick little thing from me. As you can see, we've just had update 16.1, where a new Prime, Vault and the Odinata have been revealed. Over the next few days I'm going to be farming like crazy, so if you see me online then feel free to send me a message to see that if I'm running something, I'm always up for running something. Huge thanks for helping me hit the 2,400 subs mark, and I hope you enjoyed the raid videos. It was something slightly different that I've not featured on my channel before, so I hope you guys enjoyed that, and hope that it helped you out on the raid if you guys got stuck. As always guys, many thanks for the support. Please remember to leave a like and subscribe, and I shall see you in the next episode.